Several countries, including Qatar, Egypt and Lebanon, have condemned in the strongest terms the attack perpetrated by Israeli troops on the Rafah refugee camp that left at least 45 killed. In Mexico, electoral campaigns entered their final phase in the run-up to the presidential election next Sunday, June the 2nd. BRICS Economic and Financial Forum began on Monday in Moscow, the capital of Russia, with a working agenda aimed at promoting the new global economic order. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In the Middle East, several countries, including Qatar, Egypt and Lebanon, have condemned in the strongest terms the attack perpetrated by Zionist troops on the Rafah refugee camp. Egypt's foreign ministry also denounced that the attack left hundreds dead and wounded. The various foreign offices claim that Israel has gone beyond all possible limits by attacking unarmed and defenseless Palestinians and flagrantly violating international law. The Qatari foreign ministry warns that the aggression of Rafah makes any negotiation with Hamas much more difficult and increases the risk to the lives of Israeli hostages. Egypt has urgently requested a meeting of the UN Security Council. This comes after 8 Israeli missiles targeted an allegedly safe camp housing displaced Palestinians near Rafah on Sunday. The latest information states 45 people were murdered in the attack while 249 were injured. Reports from the site state that many were burned alive inside their tents in an attack that came day after the International Court of Justice from the UN ordered Israel hold all military actions in the region. Let's recall that since October 7, 1.4 million Palestinians had been forced to seek refuge in Rafah due to Israeli attacks. The government media office in Gaza highlighted in a statement that the Israeli army attacked at least 10 displacement centers affiliated with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. It added that the recent attack on refugee camps in Rafah was carried out using at least 8 bombs of 2,000 pounds. The office stressed that the attacks are a clear message from Israel and the U.S. government to the International Court of Justice and the global community that massacres against displaced people will continue, as will the violation of international law.
The Israeli occupation army has bombarded more than 10 centers for displaced persons in the last 24 hours, and recently committed a horrific massacre in the center for displaced persons in Al-Wakala, northwest of the Rafah Governorate, killing more than 30 martyrs and injuring dozens of people. The Israeli occupation army had designated these areas as safe zones and had called on citizens and displaced persons to go to these safe zones. When the displaced persons fled to these areas, the Israeli army of occupation committed massacres and executions there.
For their part, those who were victims of the attack at the camp highlighted that the attack came without any kind of warning.
We were sitting down and we prayed the end-of-day prayer. Our children were asleep. There was nothing. We heard suddenly loud noise, and the fire started burning all around us. The children were shouting. All the rooms were surrounded. The loud sound was terrifying. It sounded like shrapnel going through the rooms.
Monday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his country would do everything possible to hold Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accountable for the deadly attacks in Rafah.
The genocidal criminals, who have martyred more than 36,000 of our Palestinian brothers and sisters yesterday, rained missiles and bombs on civilians in a refugee camp in Rafah, which they declared a safe zone. As Turkish, we will do everything in our power to hold these murderers, these barbarians, who have no sense of humanity, to account.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees and several human rights organizations continue to condemn Israel for committing war crimes in Rafah. This way, international organizations condemn Sunday's brutal attack by the Israeli occupation army, which fired on tents full of civilians. Precisely, official reports indicate that the Zionist attacks targeted women, children, and the elderly inside the refugee camps, with several displaced people burned alive. On the other hand, Chris Gunness, former President of the United Nations Work and Aid Agency for Palestinian Refugees, proposed that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant should be made wanted war criminals. Meanwhile, in Spain, after the announcement of the recognition of the Palestinian state, Israel takes measures that prohibits the Spanish government to provide consular services to Palestinian citizens. From Barcelona, our colleague Andres Flores with details.
Exactly. The news goes through the international point here in Spain because Israel has finally decided to take the decision to prohibit Spain to provide consular services to the Palestinians of West Bank. A decision that had already been advanced on Friday in an unofficial way, not in an official way through a communique, and in this case it is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel that has affirmed this prohibition to Spain, a prohibition that comes of course after the decision of the Spanish state to recognize the Palestinian state. A decision that also for now is something that has been expressed through different channels but that has not been made official because it will be made tomorrow, a decision that will also be accompanied by different countries of Europe, and that of course Israel had already stated that it was going to respond. The response has come from the diplomatic point of view with this prohibition, which we must clarify, is a prohibition that applies to those people from Palestine, not those people with Spanish passports for whom the consulate will be able to continue providing services. We recall that this also comes as a result of a large social mobilization in Spain that was pressing in the streets for a request for recognition of the Palestinian state, and also accompanied by other slogans that we have seen repeated in the various demonstrations, such as the end of the arms trade with Israel. We are going to follow very closely what is happening with all this issue because these are going to be key days today because of this consular ban. But it will also be key tomorrow when the recognition of the Palestinian state by Spain is formalized.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok, teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Iranian executive unveiled on Sunday a documentary with the latest hours of the President Ebrahim Raisi and his entourage, confirming that the crashed helicopter never left its route and that there were no impacts of projectiles. In this regard, the broadcast highlighted that when the helicopter took off, the weather conditions were optimal. On the other hand, the investigations by the Commission of Experts assured there was permanent contact until a little more than a minute before the crash. The report detailed that when the two helicopters that accompanied the one in which the Iranian president was traveling lost communication with the presidential aircraft, landed immediately, and their initial data helped to better position the place of the tragedy.
When we got to be above the clouds, after flying for almost 30 seconds, we realized that the third helicopter in which the president was traveling was not with us.
The Minister of Roads and Urban Development explained some data related to the search and that it was Iranian drones that identified the site of the accident.
There was only one base transceiver station there, and with this we could not track the location accurately, as we needed at least 3 stations, but we were able to find the most probable location of the incident.
Antigua and Barbuda, 37 nations vulnerable to the consequences of climate change, meet in the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States. The meeting is aimed at assessing the capacity of small island developing states to achieve their development, an aspect encompassed by the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals. These nations, which occupy less than 0.5% of the global land surface, are distributed in the following regions: Caribbean, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and the South China Sea. Data from the event's official website underscores that these countries contribute less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet they suffer disproportionately from the impacts of climate change. Mexico's electoral campaigns are entering their final phase in the run-up to the presidential election next Sunday, June the 2nd. Presidential candidate Claudia Sheinbaum for the political party Let's Continue Making History will lead a rally in the Revolution Square located in the state of Tabasco to continue with the closing of her campaign. On the other hand, the presidential candidate for the Citizens Movement, Jorge Alvarez, resumed his campaign events with a visit to the state of Colima. For her part, the third presidential candidate, Xochitl Galvez, will visit the municipalities of Pachica, Guadalajara, and Zapotlán El Grande as part of her electoral campaign. Mexico experiences its third heat wave with temperatures of up to 45 degrees Celsius. The National Water Commission forecasts high temperatures for 17 of the 32 states, including Sonora, Chihuahua, Sinaloa, and Nayarit. The entity explained that the cause of the high temperatures could be due to an anticyclonic wave that crosses the country. They warned that the temperature level will be maintained until next October 5th. In Colombia, rains unleashed a humanitarian emergency in Quibdó in the department of Choco, one of the country's poorest populations. More than 1,300 families are suffering the fury of the climatic phenomenon known as La Niña in the municipality of Ñuqui, the city of Quibdó. According to the disaster risk coordinator Sergio Prada, in addition to the torrential rains, the area is being hard hit by flash floods and landslides. The most critical area is the community of Termales due to coastal erosion. In the midst of this emergency, the National Institute of Meteorology and Environmental Studies of Colombia assured that there are at least 86 more municipalities under landslide alert. U.S. authorities report over 18 people killed after heavy storms and tornadoes in the state of Texas. Authorities added that several people were injured. They also detailed that dozens of homes were destroyed and thousands of citizens are without power due to adverse weather conditions. The National Weather Service issued a storm warning for the state of Oklahoma, specifying that the situation was very volatile and could bring tornadoes, hail, or dangerous winds. In Papua New Guinea, the government said Monday that more than 2,000 people are feared to have been buried by a landslide that destroyed a remote highland village. In this context, the government pleaded for international help in the rescue efforts. The hillside community in Enga province was almost wiped out when a chunk of Mount Mungalo collapsed in the early hours of Friday morning. The country's National Disaster Center said the landslide caused major destruction to buildings, food gardens, and had a major impact on the economic lifeline of the nation. The disaster center added that the landslide was continuing to shift slowly, posing ongoing danger to both the rescue teams and survivors alike. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, go away. Welcome back. BRICS Economic and Financial Forum began on Monday in Moscow, the capital of Russia, with a working agenda aimed at promoting the new global economic order. In this sense, organizers assured that more than 700 experts are attending the event, while thousands are able to access virtually. Precisely one of the objectives to be developed among ministers, government officials, diplomatic missions, businessmen, and academics will be independent financial instruments to deal with the current financial system in the materialization of new payment and settlement activities to promote fluidity between the nations of the BRICS bloc. Also in western Russia, a Ukrainian drone strike killed one person and injured 3 others in Oryol province. Local governor Andrei Klitschkov reported that the attack occurred early Monday morning when an unmanned aerial vehicle struck a gas station in the town of Livny. A second drone struck the area as an emergency services were carrying out rescue operations, killing the driver of a firefighting vehicle and injuring 3 members of the rescue team. Uzbekistan's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev hosted his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin at the presidential palace in Tashkent. The Russian president is on a two-day state visit to the Central Asian nation. A welcoming ceremony for the Russian head of state performed by the guard of honor served as a preamble to the high-level meeting. According to the information distributed by the presidential offices, there will be a restricted meeting between the presidents that will then give way to an expanded meeting at the governmental delegation level. The agenda of both scenarios is expected to discuss issues related to the energy sector in addition to the most relevant bilateral and regional issues. The armed forces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, backed up by their allies, launched a new offensive against the rebels of the March 23 movement in the province of North Kivu. Since early Sunday morning in the territories of Rutshuru and Lubero, there has been artillery fire, especially in countryside areas. A report of Radio Campi affirms that the forces loyal to Kinshasa are dropping bombs on Ruwindi, where the M23 located their positions after conquering an important mining zone. The armed forces are trying to recapture the Virunga National Park, currently in rebel hands. The fighting has forced hundreds of civilians to flee from the area. Over the weekend, South African political parties held their final rallies ahead of Wednesday, May 29th, key election day. Tens of thousands gathered in Africa's biggest stadium to take part in the African National Congress final rally. The ANC has been in power for 30 years in South Africa, but has been weakened in the run to general elections. The ruling party is projected to win about 40% of the vote, down from 57% in 2019, and be forced into a coalition government. In this context, the radical left opposition party Economic Freedom Fighters held its final rally ahead of the May 29th election. EFF firebrand Julius Malema said May 29th was going to be the beginning of a new nation. For his part, former South African President Jacob Zuma gave the keynote speech at the rally for his newly formed Umkhonto weSizwe party. Zuma, who has conviction for contempt of court, has been barred from standing as an MP and thus from the presidency. And as the electoral campaign drew to a close, President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation in preparation for Wednesday's general elections.
This will be the 7th time that South Africans of all races, from all walks of life, from all corners of our country, will go to vote for our national government and our 9 provincial governments. We will once again assert the fundamental principle articulated in the Freedom Charter that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of our people. In the days to come, we will be doing much more than exercising our constitutional right to vote. We will be determining the direction that our country takes. We will be taking responsibility for our future, the future of our families, our communities, and indeed our nation.
In Brazil, local and international football stars played a charity match to raise funds for the victims of the floods that have devastated the south of the country.
A group of both Brazilian and international football stars, including world champions Ronaldinho, Cafu, and Bebeto, played a charity match to raise funds for the victims affected by heavy rains and floods in the south of Brazil. In this regard, journalists, managers, players, and fans came together for a common cause.
When we received the invitation to participate, several friends, athletes, and personalities joined us. We're not going to stop helping. We're here, and the public will also attend, helping as well. So, let's help our fellow gauchos.
The game was played in the emblematic Maracanã Stadium of Rio de Janeiro, aiming to help the southern Brazil state that has suffered the death of more than 160 people and the flooding of 90% of its cities, including the state capital of Porto Alegre. In this sense, national celebrities invited showed the footballers' total willingness to conduct work for the affected communities.
Congratulations to the organizers of this event, and of course, we embraced it with open arms, and any help is significant, and won't stop there because unfortunately, the damage was very extensive, and we'll have to help for years.
Profit from tickets, sales, and television's broadcast will be given to charity organizations to help the victims of the flood. Precisely, Latin American and world football legend Cafu emphasized that now is the time for the Brazilian sport movement to promote strength and maintain solidarity.
I feel proud of my people. In a moment of difficulty for this nation, we gathered here with almost 50,000 people inside the stadium so that we could help our brothers and sisters in the South. I think the chain of strength and solidarity that Brazilians are demonstrating to help the South is fantastic. And being here at this historic stage, to meet again with colleagues, great friends from national teams, from games against each other, is very important.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You will join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.